Welcome back here on Live Now from Fox, and I do want to get right back into your headlines here at 10:30 on the East Coast and 7:30 on the West Coast. This is, of course, a story that we have been following over the past several days, and President Trump now declining to say whether he plans to resume underground nuclear detonation tests, as he suggested in a social media post this week that the U.S. would start testing nuclear weapons for the first time in about 3 decades. The president telling reporters, quote, "You'll find out very soon," without elaborating when asked if he means to resume underground nuclear detonation tests. Now, we did hear from both the president and Hakeem Jeffries as they had a lot to say about this.
It's just another example of Donald Trump and Republican policies going too far, being divorced from reality.
I mean, I know exactly what we're doing, where we're doing it, but other countries are doing it, and if other countries do it, we do it.
Now, Secretary Hegseth offered few details when asked about what nuclear testing the Pentagon would oversee, but he seemed to indicate to reporters that the intent was to test warheads when he said, quote, resume testing would be, quote, pretty responsible. Trump, who spoke to reporters aboard Air Force One as he headed to Florida, he saw that a short time ago, said, quote, we're going to do some testing and, quote, other countries do it. If they're going to do it, we're going to, but then refused to offer more details. I do want to discuss all of this here, what it means and the significance. So let's bring in Andrea Stricker, Research Fellow and Deputy Director of the Non-Proliferation and Biodefense Program at the Foundation for Defense of Democracies. Thank you so much for taking the time to be here with us today.
Great to be with you, Josh.
Of course. And first off, I do want to ask you overall what resuming this testing would really mean, especially when you talk about national security.
Right. The United States has suspected for years that China and Russia are not adhering to the comprehensive test ban treaty, this 1996 treaty that was never fully put in place, but all the nuclear weapon states abide by the moratorium on full-scale testing. So I think what Trump is saying is that China and Russia in particular don't adhere to the CTBT standard, that they can't undertake any testing using a sustained chain reaction in the nuclear material that creates an explosion. So the U.S. carries out functionality tests to ensure the reliability of the nuclear stockpile while not creating an explosion. And China and Russia would be doing this sort of under the radar because the CTBT has seismic sensors that would pick up testing, but not low-level testing. And so while we don't have a lot of information yet, he probably thinks that they're unfairly gathering more data than the United States is. And so I'm suspecting that he will likely announce that the U.S. will carry out similar low-yield tests. But I think as to the national security implications, he needs to proceed with caution because, of course, if everyone starts doing these tests more openly, then it could be a slippery slope to voiding the CTBT moratorium altogether. That could create a lot more insecurity around the world.
And this is actually a post from the Washington Post saying President Trump's announcement that he's ordered the U.S. to resume nuclear testing, quote, immediately has drawn confusion and alarm from some experts who argue that physical testing is outdated and would add momentum to an arms race it aims to counter. Can you talk a little bit about the last time that this was really done? Because I was saying at the start here, it's about 3 decades ago.
Right. The U.S. has observed the moratorium since 1992, and then Russia as well. They had agreed after the fall of the Soviet Union that nuclear testing was no longer technically needed and did more to hurt global security. And then North Korea is the last to have tested in 2017, so it doesn't abide by the moratorium, but it has not tested recently. India and Pakistan haven't done so since 1998, and China, I believe, was 1996. So I think we do need to look at how this would really enhance U.S. deterrence or hurt it if it does have the unintended effect of helping our adversaries. Now, China is actually planning a 5-year effort to catch up to the U.S. and Russia, if not fully in quantity of nuclear weapons, in the quality. So it's actually moving to build around 1,000 nuclear weapons by 2030, according to DoD estimates, and they currently have 600. And they're really trying to modernize their weapons and delivery systems. And I think that they could stand to gain a lot more from testing than the United States or Russia, because they've only done around under 50 tests compared to more than 1,000 by the US and more than 700 by Russia. And also, the science is pretty settled on how our nuclear weapons continue to function reliably. We still do this subcritical testing using supercomputers and simulations and other experiments that ensure the weapons are working without testing. So I think there's a strong argument that resuming even low yield testing could help China more than help us.
What message do you think President Trump is even trying to send by putting this information out there? Because he posted it on Truth Social, and then, of course, he was asked about it there aboard Air Force One, and, you know, he had a lot to say, pretty much saying, we'll see, when asked what it meant. So what message is he likely trying to send at this point, or is that unclear?
I think it's mostly political, and that we don't have a need likely for technical testing unless there's something new that we don't know about, or something new that the administration thinks they need to test and that they're missing out on through restraint. And it's also worth noting that Trump has done a bit of a 180 here, because he had initially expressed a desire on several occasions to reach an arms control agreement with Russia and China. Of course, Russia has sent a lot of bad signals this week by testing different nuclear capable platforms, and then sending mixed signals about whether it wants to conclude a follow-on US-Russia nuclear treaty, which is set to expire in February. And then, of course, China says it doesn't want to get into any arms control talks. So it's understandable that Trump doesn't want to adhere to certain standards if our adversaries are not doing so as well. But I think he should carefully telegraph that there will still be some guardrails in place, particularly relating to full-scale nuclear testing, and make sure he mitigates any negative global consequences.
All right, so what should we be watching for here in the coming days, weeks, as all of this does unfold, and there are so many questions?
Well, I think we need to make sure that our eye is still on the ball with modernizing the U.S. nuclear weapons complex. That includes our weapons, our delivery capabilities, our infrastructure, and command and control. So these are very overdue and very over budget. And I think resumed testing is going to cost hundreds of millions of dollars, if not billions, even to do so at a low yield. So I'll be looking for more details on how the president would hope to balance all of these global security concerns, as well as manage the need to use our limited resources on the modernization, as well as his missile defense priorities.
Andrea Stricker there at the Foundation for Defense of Democracies. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us and helping to break this down. I'm sure we're going to be in touch, though, as this continues to develop in the coming days and weeks. Anything we missed? I know there's a lot to this, so anything you want to add before I let you go?
Thanks, Josh. I think a lot of Americans are too young to remember the days of the Cold War where Russia and China were exploding nuclear weapons. I suspect it wasn't a very pleasant part of life, and I think nuclear testing on a large scale is going to be unpopular domestically and probably rattle people's sense of security. So I do hope the administration is thinking about how this may make people feel more insecure in their daily lives, and thinking about how it could impact people's sense of having security when he may be trying to send the opposite message.
All right, Andrea, thank you again for taking the time to be here with us. We definitely appreciate it.
Thank you.